Trump just walked away from a $200 billion war, and the price of that walk away is something nobody in Washington wants to say out loud. A 2-week ceasefire, a strait full of stranded ships, and a quiet handover of the most important shipping lane on the planet. Plus, a secret meeting in the West Wing about pulling the United States out of NATO, a surprise broker from a country nobody expected, and a Pentagon chief who, according to a major investigation, has been feeding the president fairy tales about a war that is still very much going on. I am Andrew Meet Rich, and if you want news that does not flinch, hit that subscribe button right now and tap the bell. We do the boring part of journalism, so you do not have to. Reading court filings, cross-checking source papers, calling people who actually know things. If you can spare a super thanks or sponsor the channel, you are literally paying for fact-checking that nobody else is doing. And stay until the end, because the most damaging detail of this whole story is buried in the last block. So let us start with the big one. The President of the United States, after roughly 38 days of bombing, sat down and accepted a 10-point peace plan written by the other side, not the 15-point plan his own team prepared, the other side's plan. The cost so far, by independent estimates, somewhere around $200 billion in operations, munitions, fuel, deployments, and downstream economic damage. And what did America get in exchange? A 2-week pause, a pause that the president himself, the very next morning, threatened to cancel on social media. Now look, I have covered a lot of bad deals. This one is special, because the official line from the White House podium is that this is a historic victory. The press secretary called it a victory for the United States. She said the operation, codenamed Epic Fury, destroyed the Iranian defense industrial base, hit more than 13,000 targets, and reduced the Iranian Air Force to, quote, 0 sorties per day. And maybe some of that is even true. But here is the question. If you destroyed the enemy, why are you accepting their peace plan? And now, here is where it gets really interesting. According to a major newspaper investigation, the decision to start this war was not made by professionals. It was made in a room where the loudest voice belonged to the least qualified person in it. The head of the CIA reportedly told the president that the regime change scenario was, in his words, a farce. The Secretary of State called the plan nonsense. A top general warned that the people pitching it had a habit of overstating capability and understating risk. The vice president actually said on the record, "I think this is a bad idea, but I will support you." That is the moment when an adult is supposed to slow things down. Instead, the president walked around the table, said, "Let us go," and the bombers took off. Let me explain why this affects every single one of you. Because the bill for this war is not paid by the people in that room. It is paid by you in higher fuel prices, higher grocery prices, higher interest rates, and a federal deficit that just got $200 billion heavier, and we have not even gotten to the worst part yet. Stay with me. Because while Washington was telling itself a victory story, the head of NATO was already on a plane. He landed in the capital this week for an emergency face-to-face. The official topic? Whether the United States should pull out of the alliance entirely. The press secretary confirmed it openly. Quote, "This is a question the president is discussing with the Secretary General. The trigger? European countries refuse to back the Iran operation. They refuse to send ships to the strait. They refuse to share the cost. And the White House, according to several reports, is now studying how to punish the allies. Closing American bases, pulling troops out, even reportedly shutting down the largest American logistics hub in Central Europe. If you are watching from outside the United States right now, I know what you are thinking. The alliance that was built to keep Moscow in check is debating its own dismantling because of an argument over a war in the Persian Gulf. And the people in Moscow are sitting back, eating popcorn, and writing thank you notes, because every base America closes in Europe is a base they no longer have to worry about. If this is hitting home for you, do me a small favor. Hit like, drop a comment, even one word. The algorithm decides who sees this video based on engagement in the first hour. Your tap is what pushes this past the noise. Consider sponsoring or sending a super thanks if you can. And let me get to the part you really need to hear. Because here's the surprise nobody saw coming. The mediator who actually delivered the ceasefire, not Brussels, not the Saudis, not Qatar, the Prime Minister of Pakistan. According to his own statement, the American president agreed to pause the war at his personal request. Quote, "The flames of war threaten to consume the world, but they are now subsiding. Pakistan happens to be the one Muslim country with working ties to Tehran, working ties to Washington, and a defense agreement with the Saudis that it wisely chose not to use. That made it acceptable to everyone. The Vice President of the United States is now flying to Islamabad this Saturday to negotiate the next phase. Read that sentence again. The number 2 American is going to Pakistan to negotiate the next phase of an American war. And now the part I told you to stay for. The same major newspaper investigation reports that the Secretary of Defense has been giving the president, quote, overly optimistic briefings about the war. Translation: he has been lying. The claim that the United States controls Iranian airspace? False. Iranian missiles and drones are still flying. The claim that the Iranian fast boat fleet was destroyed? False. Those boats are still operating, and they are the ones controlling the Strait of Hormuz right now. The professional military, including the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, warned about munitions running low and the strait staying open. Their warnings were ignored. And now members of Congress are openly calling for the Defense Secretary to resign. Some are even talking about the 25th Amendment. The president's approval on the economy is sitting at minus 26 points. In year one of a second term, that is a number you usually see in countries with trapdoors under the throne. And here is the kicker, the punchline that ties all of this together. Because Iran did not just survive. Iran got rich. Under the new arrangement, Tehran keeps physical control of the Strait of Hormuz, and Tehran will charge a toll, up to $2 million per tanker. Not necessarily in dollars, possibly in Chinese yuan. Analysts ran the math. At normal shipping volumes, that toll booth generates about $87 billion per year. To put that in plain English, before the war, Iran's entire oil export business brought in roughly $50 billion per year. After the war, just the toll, just the choke point fee, brings in nearly double that. America bombed Iran for 38 days, spent $200 billion. And the result is that Iran is now wealthier, paid in yuan by Chinese ships, and recognized as the manager of the world's most important oil corridor. So here's where I leave you tonight. A 2-week pause that the president himself says he can cancel at any moment. An alliance that protected Europe for 70 years now openly discussing its own end. A mediator from Islamabad doing the work that Washington's allies refused to do. A defense chief accused of feeding the commander-in-chief a fantasy version of his own war. And an opponent who walked out of the room richer, stronger, and holding the toll booth on the world's energy supply. The official line is that this is a victory. Maybe it is. The question I cannot stop asking is, a victory for whom? Listen, if you made it this far, you already know why this channel exists. Independent reporting takes hours of reading, cross-checking, and verifying every number you just heard. There is nobody behind us, no network, no donor class, no party. Just viewers like you. If today's episode helped you see the story more clearly, hit that like button right now. It tells the algorithm to push this in front of more people who need to hear it. Drop a comment with what you think comes next. Your read on this matters more than you realize. If you can support the channel through sponsorship or a super thanks, that money goes straight back into research, source calls, and travel. It is the difference between guessing and knowing. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this with one person who still trusts the official line. Thank you for being part of this.